All right, folks, the Biden campaign has announced a $30 million campaign blitz targeting battleground states, specifically also targeting Black and Latina outlets. They're really going to be looking at, of course, a lot of March Madness is coming up, and so targeting folks who will be watching NCAA games. In addition to that, they also are ramping up their efforts on the ground, opening some 100 offices across these various battleground states. This, of course, is something that I frankly say they should have been doing really 6 months ago, primarily because the campaign was starting a lot sooner. Donald Trump had long announced that he was running, and I was saying in early last year, they have to start much earlier than they normally do. I'm going to go to Julian first. Julian, this is the thing that, again, when you break down the campaign, they're trying to run this campaign like a normal traditional campaign. That to me makes no sense. If you look at the numbers are very clear, and that is the black numbers are way down. Same thing with Latinos. I have been arguing they needed a much earlier runway, and that is starting much earlier, trying to teach, educate, and enlighten voters on what they've done. They've now put themselves in a difficult position because now you're ramping up. This is March. You're not going into April. You shorten now your window. At the latest, they should have been going hard in January. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right about the way that this should have happened. We knew this was going to blow down to a two-person. Dems should have been on top of it. But secondly, and more importantly, Roland, $30 million spend post the State of the Union, which was, Brother Biden did a good job. We're going to give him credit for that. But now $30 million is going to who? I mean, we know where the weaknesses are. They're in our community where we're looking at as many as 20%, and some say 30% of African-American people, especially men, leaning toward the orange man. So we're looking at that. We're looking at diminished enthusiasm among African Americans, especially younger people. Who are the people who have these contracts? Who are the people what slice do we get out of this $30 million? We know that we represent roughly 30%, could be more, of the Democratic base. If that's the case, they're spending $30 million. Are we getting 30% of that $30 million? That would be $9 million. How much of it do you have? How much of it does BET have? How much does other Black media have? They have a whole array of podcasters and others who are getting little subsidies. How many of them are of African descent? How many of them speak to their base? You know, Roland, there's a company. I was doing some research because I want to know who they're spending the money on. And there's a company called Putnam. They've done 6 presidential campaigns. They're white-owned, and they're highly regarded. They don't even have black subcontractors. So what kind of spit is that? If Democrats want our vote, they're going to have to treat us like they treat everybody else. When they announce a $30 million spend, here's what needed to happen. They needed to say, and X number of dollars are going to independent Black media. X number of dollars, you can't say it, but I can, are going to Roland Martin Unfiltered. You have produced, supported every African-American cause. You have folks on every GD day, just about. What's up? What's in it? And I'm not talking about you, Roland. I'm talking about what's in it for us. Most of us know that you speak to Black America. So you need about $1 million, $2 million, maybe $3 million there at Roland Martin Unfiltered. But not only that, we need to stand up for ourselves. I don't want to withdraw Black votes from Democrats at this time. I will leave the country if the orange man, seriously, I got 2 trunks in my living room. If the orange man is elected president, I'm up out of here. I'm 70. I can't do this spit no more. However, that's not the point. We don't want to withdraw our votes, but we want to be appreciated. If you announce a $30 million ad buy, Who's getting the money?
Here's McCongo. This is the CBS story right here. First, hold on, folks. Let me pull it up first. Give me a second. Nope. Wrong. Don't go yet. I'm switching iPads here. Okay. This is the story from CBS. It says his campaign announced a 6 weeks advertising campaign Friday with a buy that exceeds its total spending in 2023, signaling a shift to the general election. The ads will run on TV and also on radio through Black and Hispanic-owned outlets, as well as on digital platforms. There will also be specific buys geared towards the March Madness NAACP college basketball tournament this month. Now, to Julian's point, McCongo, this is give me 1 second. This is a press release that went out in 2000 and, all right, give me 1 second, because I want to share it. This is the press release that went out in 2020. Now, the date on this press release is August 6, 2020. Go to my iPad. And so it says, yesterday, Biden for president announced a $280 million general election paid media reservation across TV, digital, and radio outlets targeting 15 key battleground states. Well, if you go down and now you see here, they tout the reservations will include historic investments to reach key constituencies, including African Americans, Latinos, Asian American, Pacific Islanders. And then this is the key. This includes a massive 8-figure multimedia investment in African American paid media. And so you see in here, they mention NNPA, Urban One Network, they mention Shade Room, and then they said numerous digital media outlets. They said, and so this planned investment builds on an earlier 6-figure buy that was one of the earliest ever investments in African American media for a presidential race. So then when you go down in this particular item here, so they touted the various folks, different quotes in here saying this is great. Okay, so, but once we got into it, most of that money was not going to Black-owned media. It was going to BuzzFeed, which then owned Complex. It was going to iHeartRadio. It was going to BET, which is Viacom. Okay, and it actually was a total of $6 million out of $280 million. Here's the problem, McCongo, that they now have. African Americans, the further you get away from the civil rights movement, fewer African Americans identify as Democrats. Black voter participation has gone down since 2008. So that's 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. So you got that issue. And so the reality is they're going to have to spend more money to reach African Americans because you now have to micro-target African Americans. The old model, and we keep saying this, and I'm telling you, the white consultants in the Democratic Party had better wake up. The old model to reach Black voters is gone. You do not have a strong infrastructure of the NAACP on the ground. You do not have a strong Black church infrastructure that you used to have. The voting groups are younger. They're not necessarily going to church. You're going to have to micro-target African Americans who are economic voters, African Americans who are social voters, African Americans in terms of Black men. You got to have a very clear, targeted, deeply rooted program targeting Black men. I don't think they fully understand you can't run the same campaign in 24 that you ran in 2016, 2012, and 8 with Obama.
Absolutely. And, my daughter's actually going to be voting in her first election this year. And we have all these conversations about politics, and I don't hear anything about any targeting that's happening towards her in her social media spaces or networks and things that she watches. I think one of the challenges that the Biden administration is going to have is that they are going to spend more time going after Nikki Haley's voters and, independent voters and neglect a large portion of the Black community. And like you said, when it comes to the Black community, primarily targeting those who are older in church, the quote unquote civil rights legacy type voter. And as you said before, many young Black people are not identifying with that on many levels. They have economic interests, business, and not saying that our older community doesn't, but what I'm saying is they don't resonate on the same level. And you also see Trump and his party, they're creating all of these other images that, even though they got these fake AI generated images and the sneakers and so on and so forth, at the very least is generating a conversation about how to target young Black people. And the Biden administration has to do a better job in getting with that program. And if you said 6 million out of 280 million,
yeah, that was
us. In 2020,
look,
2020, right?
Look, and I have no problem saying it. We submitted a $2 million proposal. They came back and literally said, hey, we can give $20,000 to 4 Black papers. Are they happy? I said, well, that ain't us. The eventual ad spend, then it came back at 100. I said, no. They came back at 200. And they said final was 300. And I said, yes. And then I blasted them afterwards. They were like, what you blasted us? I said, oh, I'm sorry. You thought I was happy with 300? The answer is no. And so, again, what I keep trying to articulate to them, the Black voter is different. And I'm telling you, folks are not understanding this. Teresa, you're there in Philadelphia. You're one of the battleground states. Are you hearing Black-owned media getting any of this $30 million?
Well, yeah, I have 2 hats. Also working with the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. So I am hearing they are getting it. And we actually, because I'm actually in the room for these conversations, are actually targeting local Black independent papers here in the city of Philadelphia and other smaller counties across the Commonwealth. So, but I agree with your point, Roland. There has to be someone like you on the national scale when they are putting these budgets together and not just thinking of just an easy, like it's easy to give to Viacom, it's easy to give to the Griot, it's easy to give to these major national media outlets versus dealing with the local ones because they hit a lot of targeted areas, but the targeted areas isn't really reaching our people and our communities. That's why in Pennsylvania, we made sure that our targeted approach was having the regional ones, but also the local papers, because the local papers are also still putting boots on the ground.
Yeah.
They're still, dropping it in corner stores. They're still, making sure it's at your doorstep versus the other ones who, say, hey, we're cutting costs because of circulation. They, if they cut out of a certain district or a neighborhood, you're also losing out on that information.
And Teresa, again, this is an election about the margins. Listen, Don't take my word for it. If you call Virginia House Speaker Don Scott, we worked with them. We did 5 town halls, broadcast the show. He said thousands of people were watching. He said the work that we did played a huge part in them retaking the House. And so this is not just about what we do. You've got Earn Your Leisure. You've got other Black podcasts out there. You've got other Black digital outlets. You've got other Black-owned media outlets. And so, again, what I'm trying to explain to folks, I do on this show as well, when I see these polls, I understand that because I've probably been in 20 cities since MLK Day. And I know what I'm hearing in those 20 cities. I'm talking to regular, ordinary people. I'm not talking to political people and folks with money. They have a problem, and they have a problem with the couch, and they have to fight the couch. There were 3 PACs that announced that they're going to be spending some $30 million reaching African Americans, Latinos, Asian American, Pacific Islanders. Quentin Brown is a co-founder of Collective PAC. He joins me in studio. And Quentin, this thing is real. When you study the numbers, when you go to these states, look, in Texas, with Beto running in 2022, 75% of young people under 30 did not vote. Okay. Exactly. There was a 50,000 voter drop-off in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. Those 50,000 folks vote in 2022 like they did 18. Mandela Barnes is U.S. Senator.
And you get the Congress, right?
And you get the Congress. And so so my deal is, I hope folks at the DNC and the Biden campaign are paying attention to what we're talking about, because we're actually in these communities. And I'm telling you right now, what I am hearing and seeing will be fewer Black folks voting in 2024 than who voted in 2022. That's the problem. He's going to need every available vote, a Black vote, especially Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Exactly. And listen, that's why these three groups came together for a historic endorsement. Usually endorsements happen in August, September, towards the election. We wanted to come out early in March and say, we are coming out first to say we want to stand with Joe Biden. We know he has the record, right? We have the receipts on what he's done for our community. But to your point, our community doesn't know about it, right? They haven't heard these things from the campaign. And so we really think that the campaign, in our opinion, started after State of the Union, right? This past weekend, folks are kind of feeling a little energized. They saw the State of the Union. They think Joe Biden did a good job, which we do too. And so we were in Atlanta this past weekend with Senator Warnock, with Senator Ossoff, with Mayor Dickens. And I can tell you there is energy building on the ground since last Thursday. This commitment for $30 million in an ad buy, I think, is a first step in this process. But Roland, we agree. We have to make sure that black voters understand what Joe Biden has done. They need to hear it from black media. And so it's going to be really critical that we partner together with you and others. And part of that commitment is our own money, right? We are committing $10 million we're investing in Georgia alone as an organization to make sure, again, that people not only know of the receipts that we have, but that we're doing it and communicating with folks the right way, right? So black newspapers, black digital shows like yours and others, it's going to be really critical to our ability to win this election.
And see, this is the piece that is, I think, is hard for consultants to understand. You can run ads all day. You can run TV and radio ads. But you simply do not have the time in a 30-second or a 60-second spot to actually explain policy.
Exactly.
To actually explain this got done, this got done, this got done. And that's why I sort of frame it that the campaign should be thinking about an education and enlightenment strategy where you literally are going into various cities and towns. You gotta hit rural Georgia. You gotta hit rural North Carolina. Explaining, done this. We're going to chat in a moment with Higher Heights. And look, Terrence Woodbury with his strategist, he's laid out in his own research in the focus groups. When you explain to black people what's actually been done, it completely changes their perspective.
Exactly.
But if you don't actually take the time to explain it, you're not going to get them. And I'm telling you, the biggest thing that the Biden-Harris campaign is fighting is the couch.
Exactly. Listen, we know that in many of these states, the election was decided by 10,000, 20,000 votes. And so it's going to be at the margins, to your point. We don't have the advantage of leaving voters behind. We have to bring every voter to the table, and it's going to take a massive education and media and ground game. We got to do everything. We don't have the kind of privilege of kind of sitting back and thinking that folks are going to come to us. That's not going to happen. And I heard one of the commenters mention, going after Nikki Haley voters and those kind of never Trumpers. Listen, the Biden coalition is going to be big. It's going to be broad, but we can't focus on one group and not, give the attention to base voters like black voters the way that we need to.
And I don't want to run past what you used to, again, when people don't understand, the numbers are the numbers. Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 because of 77,000 votes.
Exactly.
77,000 votes in 3 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. You look at the numbers in 2020, it was larger, but it wasn't that large of a victory margin with Biden-Harris.
Exactly.
So let's just take Georgia right here. If you look at 2020 in Georgia, you had Warnock running for the Senate, ready to make history. You had first African-American from the South since Reconstruction, United States Senator. Then you had Ossoff running as well. So you had massive energy in Georgia because they were running, and so Biden-Harris able to draft off of that.
Exactly.
You don't have that in 2024.
Right.
So you now have to really go in and cultivate that. There was a story I saw just the other day that their numbers in Georgia are much lower. You had a whole different view with the pandemic. Republican kept the state open. A lot of black businesses were appreciative of that. You look at the election that taken there. So again, this is where you got to go in and you got to be on the ground. You got to be now. You got to be in Savannah. You got to be in Albany. You got to be in all of those small towns where you got 20, 30, 40, 50,000 black folks. You cannot depend on Fulton County and Marietta.
No. I think, look, Atlanta is going to be important in the process, but I'll tell you another stat about Georgia. There are over 850,000 unregistered African Americans right now who are, eligible but not registered. And think about that. 10,000, 11,000 votes decided the election last cycle. So the power is in our community.
2.9 million eligible black voters in Texas.
Exactly, another state, right? And the election was decided by, I think, 3,000 votes.
Well, Cruz, he only won by 2.5 points against Beto for down the state Senate.
Exactly.
You got Representative Colin Allred running against him.
Right.
Biden loses North Carolina by just 2.5 points.
75,000 votes.
In 2020, there you go, 75,000 votes. And if you go look at those numbers, a lot of those rural African Americans, they never touched.
Exactly. We don't have the privilege to leave anybody behind in this process. And so it's going to take massive investment across the board, right? In field, in digital, but also in black media. So we agree with you, we stand with you. We're gonna do everything we can to make sure that we're thinking about not just, again, spending money on outlets that are, in white companies, right? But black-owned media is gonna be really important because what we know is that black voters wanna hear from authentic, trusted messengers. And that's that's who you are, that's what your show is. And so again, we're very grateful to be here and for everything you're doing, Roland.
I'm gonna give y'all, so before I go to the break, I'm gonna come back and talk to Glenn the Car. I'm gonna give you something. So the Warnock campaign, they were messing around in 2022. Black newspapers in Georgia, in the middle of September, they had not bought one ad.
Oh, wow.
In a single black newspaper in Georgia. It wasn't until Meredith Lilly went from the Senate staff to the campaign was like, what in the hell is going on? All of those black preachers that own smaller radio stations around Georgia, they hadn't gotten anything. Warnock barely won. Right. I mean, it was like 75,000, 80 votes against Herschel Walker.
Exactly.
So again, this is going to be a margin election. It is going to be picking off 800, 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, and you're going to look up, and that's going to be 10, 15, 20, 25,000.
And I'll say this last thing, though. I think I want to put some confidence in Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is kind of at the stage where he's probably running his last election. And I think he's understanding that he has to do things a little bit differently this time. He's not going to be able to depend on, kind of his history of being old Joe that we love. He's going to have to do some things differently.
Well, here's the deal. So, my focus ain't on Joe. Because let's just be honest, candidates don't run campaigns. Problem is, are those campaign strategists, or the folks who are making the decisions, are they listening? And are they listening to the black folks in the campaign? Right. Are they listening to Vice President Kamala Harris? Are they listening to the black people who are around Vice President Kamala Harris? Are they listening? Because at the end of the day, and I talk to enough folk who've worked in these circles, oftentimes they don't until we get to late September, October, then they're frantic. Listen to black people early.
Exactly.
Then you're not trying to scramble late.